All right, this is Rick Reviews. This review is focusing on the final Smackdown of 2022. John Cena's big return for his 20th consecutive year on SmackDown. He barely made it. Just barely. We'll get to that a little bit later. But let's talk a little bit more about the good and the bad of the episode. Starting right off the top, the best storyline I think I've seen, comeback storyline especially, that I've seen in quite, I don't know, probably forever, is Bray Wyatt's storyline. The whole Uncle Howdy, and which is, I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm a old school metal freak, and when I hear Uncle Howdy, I think Captain Howdy from Twisted Sister Stay Hungry album. So I think there's some relevance there, I don't know. There's something there because, why would you call you Uncle Howdy? Anyway, and it is about, Bray Wyatt, who, he's not going to take it anymore. Anyway, I digress. He's got this pending feud with LA Knight. Now, LA Knight is relatively a nobody in the WWE. I mean, he's people might know him from NXT, as, I don't know, he had some different name over there. I can't remember what it was. But he was also on TNA Impact as Eli Drake, which is probably that's kind of where I got to know who he is as a wrestler. TNA was always pretty good at trying to elevate their low mid-carders up a notch. They were always trying to push them a little bit, but it's up to the individual performer to take the proverbial ball and run with it or go home kind of thing. And I think I think I don't know if he's the wrong person for this feud, but he definitely it feels like a squash match coming up. That's just how it feels to me. It's like building this big program with LA Knight for, Bray Wyatt's return. It's a great build-up. Don't get me wrong, the story is absolutely epic in all natures, but it's only on Bray's side. LA Knight hasn't really stepped up to the plate yet and really offered any reason for us to believe that he could take out Bray Wyatt. He's got the old mouth rolling out there, but but he doesn't have a lot of swagger to it. I think if you put a little bit more swagger, a little bit more, balls into his promos, I think we might believe that he might actually be able to actually beat Bray Wyatt. But maybe that's the whole angle. They're really not playing for him to beat him. Maybe it's just a build up for Bray's big comeback, and then lead on to whatever. But I feel like they're doing a disservice to LA Knight by not allowing him to really just, give him some really meaty, promos that will, make people believe in him that he can beat Bray Wyatt. Right now, I don't think anybody believes that he can beat Bray Wyatt. He's just too low on the card. And, if he wins, it's going to be a squeaker. That's usually how these work out. But it ain't going to be the big push that they're hoping that it will be. It'll be more like, Bray's just going to come. He's just going to unleash, the Fiend again and, essentially annihilate him, I'm pretty sure. And that'll be the end of LA Knight, right? I mean, you're going up against Bray Wyatt. It's a little bit. You really need somebody a little bit more mid-tier, I think, to feud with him, to make it effective. But it is what it is. The story is epic, which is great. It's all about Bray's return. I think the promo, not the promo that Bray did here on this episode, but the previous week where Bray attacked a cameraman. He lost his train of thought in the ring, and then he attacks the cameraman. Even if it was scripted, it just seemed a little like the payoff wasn't well. I don't think attacking a cameraman, even though he's technically a developmental talent. I just don't. We didn't know that at the time. We thought it was just a cameraman. That's the way they present these things on TV, and it just felt cheap. I mean, if we didn't have that inside knowledge, it would. I think people would expect that every week from Bray now. And I feel that that was a disservice to the Bray Wyatt character at this point, anyway. Especially if he's trying to build a program with LA Knight to get to do an epic return at Royal Rumble. I just feel like that's what it is. Um, anyway, the story is great. The participant, the LA Knight participant should be better. At least more believable that he could possibly beat him. At least more believable that he could beat him. Now, as we all know, it's all, these storylines are scripted, so we also know that he could be scripted to win. The LA Knight could be scripted to win, but would it be believable? I don't think so. I don't think fans would buy that for 1 second, that he could beat Bray Wyatt. At least not fairly, anyway. And that's probably how they would end up doing it. The whole Captain or Uncle Howdy. That's another thing. The old school rocker in me feels like that's a take on Captain Howdy from Twisted Sister. So if I do say Captain Howdy, that's what I'm remembering. And I'm just not going to take it anymore. But anyway, because I want to rock. Anyway. So, that aside, I feel like, Uncle Howdy, here we go again. Uncle Howdy is, I don't think it is Bo Dallas. I don't think it's gonna, I don't really know who it is per se, but I don't think it's gonna be Bo Dallas. I believe that they're going to, personally, who I believe it's gonna be, you're gonna laugh at me, but, and I think because we've seen a little preview of it on Raw a couple weeks ago, it just kind of planted a seed in my head that Uncle Howdy, he's a little, I don't know. I'd have to see him, I guess, see the size difference here. But it very possibly could be. Possibly. Now, I'm not saying this. This is my theory, is that it could be Alexa Bliss under the mask. Of course, the voice, they'd have a voice changer to make it sound more manly, but remember, she did that thing to Bianca Belair where she kind of put her in the Sister Abigail without giving her the move, and now Uncle Howdy does it to Bray Wyatt. It's just something to ponder. You're all gonna say, "Oh, the body type," but the thing is she could be in, stilted boots too. So that is a very good possibility. Women wearing platform shoes quite often, and I know she does. She's posted on Instagram that she wears some platform shoes before that lifts her up about 6 inches. So, this is just in her personal life. So, it is possible that she could be doing it for the character as well. Which is the reason why there wasn't a whole lot of confrontation between, Uncle Howdy and Bray Wyatt. Just the Sister Abigail. So who knows? I'm not saying it is her. I'm not saying it isn't her. I'm just saying it is a possibility. It also is a possibility it could be Bo Dallas, but I think that's a more of a remote possibility, considering there's been no potential scuttlebutt yet that he is even back with the company. So who knows? But anyway, I feel like the whole Uncle Howdy thing is going to come into big play at Royal Rumble for this somehow, some way, and it'll probably be what we'll take out. If anything takes up Ray, it's probably going to be Uncle Howdy, and then LA Knight's going to get the win, and whatever have you. That's the only way LA Knight can win this thing. There's just it can't be a match to the hilt like Bray and Randy had, or the Fiend and Randy had at WrestleMania. That would be really cool, but at this point in the game, it won't happen. I do feel like it's going to be an epic end to that storyline. Now, where Bray goes from there will remain to be seen, of course. But we'll talk about that at a later time. Now, let's get to, one of the worst things. It's not, let me preface it by saying it's not about the storied return of Charlotte Flair. It's about the way they buried Ronda Rousey. They left money on the table between these two. Clearly left money on the table. granted, Flair could come back, do the impromptu match, but I don't think that there should have been. I don't think it should have been a match. I think it should have just been a squash moment where kind of putting Ronda on notice that, hey, I'm coming back for my title, and then build a program between the two of them, maybe even as long out as WrestleMania, but to put the belt back on Flair the minute she returns, it felt real cheap, especially against Ronda Rousey. Now, because Ronda Rousey, could definitely, it just felt cheap in my opinion, and it felt like it really buried Ronda. Maybe Ronda wants some time off, but the thing is, regardless of that, think about the way Roman Reigns has worked. He has time off, and he's held the belt through the whole time off thing. I think the only time he ever dropped the belt for time off was when he fought his leukemia a few years ago. But this last run, he spent a good chunk of, I think 2020 out, but or 2021 out, but he still remained champion. He still held the belt. He just wasn't on the show. And I think they could do that with Ronda, too. At least it wouldn't be nearly as long, but they could, have her more sporadic appearances between now and Mania, and have Flair run through a bunch of people to get her chance to fight Ronda at WrestleMania. And I feel that's where the money should be for that match. I know that they'll probably still do that, but now that they've got the belt back on Flair, now they'll have Ronda coming back and it's kind of, to me, that's kind of chitsy. Ronda held the belt. She shouldn't be especially Ronda, shouldn't be losing the belt in a squash match against a returning superstar, if you will. Especially one that they didn't even build up that was returning. She just sort of came out of nowhere, won the belt, and now what? There was no build up to the storyline. There's no, is it going to reignite the old rivalry? Yeah, but it feels cheap now. Because Charlotte became 14-time world champion based on what? Her return? They could have at least built it up for a couple of weeks anyway, maybe just to Royal Rumble, and then have her, win the belt back. That would have been even better than what they did. I think giving her the belt the minute she returns was a little cheap, especially against Ronda Rousey. Now, if anybody else, say Shayna Baszler held the belt, or any of the lower tiered, not Shayna Baszler, she's lower tiered than Ronda Rousey. You got to admit, even though she runs with Ronda, she's like one notch lower than Ronda, just in the grand scheme of things on the hierarchy on the show. But I think if she held the belt, I can see the squash happening. Anybody lower than Ronda, I can pretty much see the belt being squashed and Charlotte taken over, and then but it was against Ronda. It's like she's like top tier material. It's like she's money on the table. You want to have a good battle between Flair and Rousey? Just have Flair come back, put her on notice, maybe take her out the same exact way, just no belt on the line, squash her quickly, and then be like, I'm coming for that. That's mine, and then just kind of build the program towards it. I think that would have been a much better way to handle that situation. Now I'm gonna skip over a lot of the mid card stuff, because it's just mid card stuff, and honestly, it's not that it's not unwatchable. It's just, to me, it doesn't really build programs. It's not the reason why you're tuning in, right? It's good stuff, don't get me wrong, and it could potentially be that stuff in the future, but at this point it's not. And so let's just kind of move on to the whole John Cena returns thing. I saw this coming from a mile away. Actually, there was a lot more. I'll get to that in a minute. But I saw this coming from a long way away. They got the whole Sammy and Roman team. Honestly, I expected Sammy to get a little bit more offense, in that match. It's like every time he got off one thing of offense, he was taken down by Kevin Owens, and Kevin had rolls of offense. It wasn't one move. It's usually, a couple, 2, 3 moves. Then Sammy might get a move in, and whatever. But I felt like I felt like that's it really slowed it really made Sammy look weak in a way, because I know Sami Zayn's a great worker, but to me it made him look a little weak, especially in that match. I feel he could have taken it to Kevin a little bit more. That they could have booked it that way. I know that they didn't, but I feel that they could have, because those were the two main workers in this match. Yeah, Roman got his moment in there, but even Roman looked, a little flustered in that match. I mean, I expected him to really be, I don't know, more aggressive especially towards Kevin Owens. I just didn't feel like I felt like the match was more about Cena's return than anything. And then they botched that, in my opinion, because here's what happened. The whole match, he was not tagged in. I mean, yeah, I can all understand the whole, wanting to be tagged in thing, but his facials and running across back and forth just seemed a little overblown to me. It was like, yeah, I know John Cena's back and he was trying to be the face of the match, but if you're not in the match, how can you be the face of the match, right? And then when he finally did get tagged in at the end, this is where I have a problem. He had 2 shoulder blocks, which was two moves more than I expected him to have. Here's what I expected him. I expected him to come in, do the whole "you can't see me," boom, drop the 5-knuckle shuffle, and then give an attitude adjustment and the pin, 1, 2, 3, and then call it a night. That's how I expected. But he got 2 shoulder blocks in, which was 2 moves more than I expected him to get. And I feel like it was a good draw. There was money made, yes, but I feel like that that everybody but Kevin Owens kind of got shafted a little bit in that match. I mean, it made Roman look weak. I mean, he got the attitude adjustment and 5-knuckle shuffle, and he took the moves and stuff, but I mean, there was no Superman punch. There was, at least not in the match. Maybe he did it on the outside of the ring or something. I think he did that maybe he did that to Cena outside the ring. I can't really remember, but I do remember that, it just seemed like, the story between Sammy and Kevin should have been bigger in this match too. And Sammy shouldn't have been booked to look as weak as he did. I mean, yeah, he got moves in, but none of them were really effective. And it just kind of bothered me a little bit. It just kind of made me feel like, I don't know what they're doing with Sammy. It's a great story, the whole bloodline, it's very juicy, and I do enjoy Sammy in the bloodline, but I think that they should, if they're going to keep him in there, at least until they're ready to not have him in there, I think they should make him look as strong as possible. They should make him a force to be dealt with, be reckoned with. To kind of prove because he's trying to prove his loyalty, right? And so I feel that that's the best way for him to prove his loyalty, is by being the Sami Zayn wrestler that he was before he joined the bloodline, that aggressive, highly technical, worker. I just feel like they've watered him down as a worker. I feel like they've watered him down a little bit in the bloodline. Because he could easily have taken Kevin Owens. I mean, I feel like that there's a lot of money to be made there, and that could still be a WrestleMania thing. I think Kevin Owens versus Sami Zayn somehow is going to be WrestleMania. Now, everybody's like, they're like this and that, but I feel that they're building a program with those two people. I feel like somehow, some way, it's going to end up being Owens versus Zayn at Mania. I believe. Now, I believe what you saw was essentially a WrestleMania moment here. I believe that Roman Reigns versus John Cena is going to be at WrestleMania as well. Now, I know everybody's saying, well, Cena's versus this person. There's that. No, I think it's going to be Roman Reigns, because I feel like John Cena, I don't think it's going to be for the title, though. See, and that's the whole thing. I think Roman's going to lose the title before WrestleMania, just to have his match with Cena at Mania. I feel like that they're going to take the title off the line. And if they don't, I have a feeling that if they don't take the title off the line, I have a feeling John Cena is still going to beat him at Mania for the title and beat Ric Flair's. Yeah, he's going to become the 17th time world world champion or WWE champion or whatever it is. Yeah. Um, Whatever they're calling it these days, because when you think about it, there's been the world champion, the WWE championship, the undisputed championship, the unified champion. I mean, there's so many different names for this thing now that it's like it kind of loses its luster to me. I mean, it is a belt, but it means it doesn't have the history. This particular unification thing doesn't really have the history that say WWE Championship or World Heavyweight Championship had. Those went for years and years and years. And I know they did the Undisputed thing, which was both of them together. And Chris Jericho won that back in 2001. He was the first Undisputed champion. And I feel like if they would have just kept it then, but they split it up again. Then they put it Raw Championship, Smackdown Championship. It's like, geez, too many of these things just keep going and going and going. And so I'm not really sure. I'm lost as to I see Roman comes out with 2 different belts now, but it's called the Unified Championship. It's like, well, why doesn't he just have one belt then? I don't understand the purpose behind that. He doesn't put each one up individually, in a fight. So I don't really know anymore. I don't understand why there's 2 belts. But anyway, I feel like John Cena coming back, barely by the skin of his teeth for a 20th, consecutive run on SmackDown is definitely a ploy. I don't understand it. I feel like they should have saved that for a pay-per-view at some point this year. Maybe brought back for SummerSlam or something like that. And the SmackDown before it. I feel like something like that should have been done more, because there is no pay-per-view coming up other than Royal Rumble, and I don't feel that John Cena is going to be at the Royal Rumble. If he is, it's just he's going to win the thing, because he's got to go up against Roman Reigns. At least in my mind, that's what's going to happen. He's going to enter the Royal Rumble, then he's going to win it, and then he's going to face Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. I could be wrong. This is just educated guess on my part, put it that way. But anyway, I feel like that was the SmackDown, last SmackDown of 2022. It was a good show overall. There wasn't anything that was terrible or other than Charlotte Flair winning the title upon her surprise return against Ronda Rousey. That was probably I talked about that already. That's probably the worst part about the show. Now, I don't mind Charlotte Flair being back, but I feel that the program should have been built, a little stronger for a match between these two, instead of just giving her and basically it was sort of like, you go out there, take the belt, welcome back kind of thing. Like, no. Against Ronda Rousey? No. Now, like I said, anybody less than Ronda Rousey, probably I could see that happening. If anybody else had that title, even if, say, that Shotzi had won it against Ronda Rousey, I could definitely see Charlotte Flair come back and just decimating her like she did Ronda Rousey, in a surprise match to take her belt back. But, this is against Ronda Rousey. There's money left on the table because of this. And I feel like they did a real disservice to Ronda, But the Roddy one shall return. I know she'll come back and fight for her belt back, or fight for the belt back. That, or she's going to take her ball and go home, because either way, Ronda has the heel attitude that, like, if I can't have it, I'm gone kind of. I just feel like that's her attitude. It's it's a character attitude, but I feel like it's still the attitude nonetheless. It's sort of like Stone Cold's real life attitude back in 2001 or 2002, whatever it was. When he took his ball and went home. It's the real life that was his real life attitude back then. I feel like they're putting that into the Ronda character. There's a lot of similarities to what happened with Steve Austin back in that era. That I see that they're putting into the Ronda character. They've been doing it for a couple years now with Ronda anyway, and it's kind of cool to see that, but it's also kind of predictable, because now they're, the only thing that she's missing is the middle finger and the stunner. When Kevin Owens has a stunner, but I don't think that's another thing too. Is I'm just gonna make a little nitpick now. I know, well, Kevin Owens is doing it as a tribute to Stone Cold. the stunner. That's sort of how it started. I feel like that's a move that should never have been done by anybody else but Stone Cold Steve Austin. I feel like it should. It's just like one of them. It's one of those few iconic moves, sort of like the pedigree should never be done by anybody but Triple H. Yet Seth Rollins uses it. Seth Rollins, it reminds me of my time on the indie scene when I saw somebody use somebody used the pedigree on the indie scene. They actually knocked the person out by giving it to them. It's just it's one of those moves that if you don't you know it's got to be done by the right person. It's got to be done by somebody that looks like they can give the pedigree too. First of all, Seth Rollins is kind of scrawny for giving somebody a pedigree, in my opinion. Now, Bobby Lashley wanted to give somebody a pedigree. I'd believe it, easily. That guy's built. He could give the pedigree and it would look amazing. You know, I mean, the stunner. The stunner isn't. If you're gonna give the stunner, it's. I don't. I think Sami Zayn would give the stunner better than personally than Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens is a little bit of a bigger guy. I think he should have a bigger move. I don't know what, but I think he should have a big guy move. Yeah, he's built like a prize fighter. Maybe he should have the Superman punch. I think they gave that move to the wrong character. But yes, I'd believe it if Kevin Owens did the Superman punch to somebody. I'd believe it. The guy, one big ham fist, But anyway, that being aside, I'm gonna call this one a wrap for this week. Now this series, I just want to let you know, it won't always be about wrestling. It's about thoughts that go in my head, about things I've watched, things I've witnessed. It's just my take on reviewing pretty much anything. And if I ever get like a particular thing that people really like and I get a lot of hits for it, I might lean more towards doing those kinds of reviews in the future. Right now I'm just kind of fishing, if you will, for what works for me, what works for you, what you want to see me talk about. But if you do like this, hit the like button and we'll see you on the next one.